The Treaty of Versailles, 1914, saw the proliferation of violence and bloodshed the likes of which the world had never previously experienced. After 4 more years of bitter conflict at the cost of 40 million lives, untold economic damage, and the emergence of virulent animosity, World War I drew to a close in 1918 with Britain, France, America, and Italy emerging as the victorious Allied powers. To mark the end of the conflict, the Allied powers converged on Paris to sign an armistice agreement that later came to be known as the Treaty of Versailles. The Allied powers were seeking restorative justice, with the inevitable outcome being the Nash equilibrium, in which no Allied power had an incentive to deviate from their self-interest. The national interest of each negotiating party served to determine their respective anchoring points. This disparity of understanding is perhaps no better illustrated than when the French highballed the value of reparations to 800 billion gold marks. Critically, the key protagonist, Germany, was absent from the negotiating table. What was the focus? The French focus was not on the opportunities or even the repercussion of taking a tough stance. Rather, the focus was on the past massive financial, physical, and human cost that had been incurred during the war. Ordinarily, there would be a range of options with a large zone of possible agreement, from the Allied position to the German position, with a possibility of reaching an agreement and a Pareto curve that would have resembled this picture. Was there a unified Zopa? Was the focus peace or punishment? The demands and the positions of the various countries was very varied. And here, the position of the USA, the position of the UK, the position for France, that of Italy, and not surprisingly, that of Germany. One thing was certain, there was no unified purpose, and this left everyone discontented. As for Germany, the burden was simply too much. This meant that the Allied powers presented a proposition that was paradoxically manifestly unfair. The insistence of wildly optimistic reparation demands, set in the context of military reoccupation of Germany if it refused to sign the treaty, had the effect of drastically reducing the Zopa, producing a picture akin to this, with very little room for maneuver. Interestingly, this was a linked system negotiation with differing negotiating attitudes from the different countries, as shown. Germany was urged by some to reject the ultimatum, as quite simply there was nothing left for Germany to lose. The Allied forces advanced to the Weser River and, by increasing pressure, forced Germany's hand to accept these unsustainable terms. Unsurprisingly, Germany fell behind in the payments demanded, and Allied troops were sent to occupy the Ruhr in early 1923. This was a serious miscalculation as the German economy plunged into hyperinflation and the explosive surge in prices impoverished German citizens, fueling bitter class and ethnic frictions and galvanizing the nascent Nazi Party. The cyclical nature of human history has revealed similar challenges to the Treaty of Versailles in modern times. An example was with the Brexit negotiations, where Theresa May had difficulty negotiating the deal with the EU and selling it to the people, in the same way like Woodrow Wilson was unable to fully trade upon his 14-point plan. Interestingly, though, following the Second World War, we see that nation building is now firmly on the agenda, as was evident in the efforts to rebuild Germany after the Second World War. A final thought for you. Was the Treaty of Versailles well-intentioned, or were the British and French peace terms vindictive? Did the economic miseries of the post-war years and the attempts to draw blood of reparations and war debts from the veins of exhausted people of the continent, did this set the stage for Adolf Hitler 20 years later and usher in a second horrible military conflagration? Have we learned?